everyone. In this video I'm going to show you how to create a Jonny Wan inspired artwork. So if you've never seen a Jonny Wan inspired artwork before or any of his work, I'm going to be looking at his work that is symmetrical. So symmetrical just means that it's the same on both sides. So you can see here this is one of his designs. So if I was to cut it down the middle, it would be the same on both sides. There are a few things here that aren't quite symmetrical, I'm aware of that, but overall they are symmetrical. You'll also notice that a lot of these designs are also using a monochromatic color scheme. So monochromatic just means mono meaning one, chromatic being color. So he's just using the one color and then using different hues, different shades and tints, not different hues, different shades and tints of the same color. So in this it's all light and dark grays, in this it's all light and dark blues, and reds and so on. So it's full of patterns and solid colors and shapes. So we're going to try and do the same thing with our own artwork. So the first thing you'll need to do, I would recommend using an animal face. It's a little bit easier than trying to use a human face because you've got more things to play around with. Try and find a picture of an animal face that is front on. That way you get the most symmetrical view of that animal's face. Alright, the next thing you want to do is up here we've got the symmetrical tool, which is this little one here. When you click that on, you'll notice that you get a line. So I'm just going to change mine so it's vertical on my spreadsheet. And you'll notice that it will automatically want to be centered on your page. So if your animal or picture is not in the center, if you go to your move tool, you can then nudge it over to the side or move it until it's centered. Okay, close enough's good enough, because remember at the end our photograph of our picture is not going to be there, just our drawing. So if it's slightly off, that's okay. So you also notice that I can move this, and I don't want to be able to move it. I want to leave it in the middle. So I want to use this little lock option, which means that I can now no longer move that line. So I'm not going to accidentally move it while I'm drawing. Okay, so I'm then going to come across to my brushes, and the first thing that you'll need to do is to block in your solid colors. So if I come across here, you'll see her face here in the background has a solid sort of dark orange color, and you need to do that solid color before you do all of the details on top. Okay, so you do all your solid colors first, and for that I recommend bringing the image in closer. The closer your image is, the easier it will be to draw. I'm using a stylus to help me draw on my screen. I would recommend either using, which I found really useful, is the paintbrush, which has a solid color. It doesn't have any texture or any fuzz, or the 4 pencil. They're both very nice solid colors, color pencils or paintbrushes. So the first thing you want to do is block in all those colors. Okay. You also need to, at this point, you need to choose a color scheme. So if you've got your color puck here, or if you're using your color options up here, the first thing you'll need to do is choose a color from around the outside. Once you've chosen that color, all the colors that I now use will need to be from this middle section here. Okay, so I've got my blue and I just use light and dark from inside that section. Okay, don't change it on here at the side. Choose the one and then just use all of the inside here. That way you'll consistently have a monochromatic color scheme. If you change here, you're changing the hue. You only want to change the tint and shade. Okay, so just for an example, I'm going to stick with my blue that I've got here. On your color puck, you can also make your brush smaller or larger. And so the first thing I want to do is I want to just get in a flat color for the base of that section. Now I could use my brush and go in and paint that. To be quicker, I can use my bucket tool. Just be aware that when you bring in your bucket tool or your fill, your symmetrical will disappear. So if you are, and what did I do wrong? I forgot to add a new layer. So I'm going to add a new layer, and I'm going to do my drawing on that new layer. Sorry guys, that's a very noob mistake. Alright, so on a new layer I do my line drawing. When you use your bucket fill, like I was saying, your symmetrical will disappear before you do your fill. So if you have, for example, I'm just going to change my hue, so my saturation, my tint and shade. Okay, if you have two sections, for example, Let's say, for example, I do my ear up here. I now have an ear on either side. When I go to use my bucket tool to fill in with color, I'll just need to fill both sides. Okay, so just be aware of that if you're going to use the fill tool, that your symmetrical will disappear. Just bring your symmetrical to go back to drawing. Okay, so once you've filled in all of those solid colors and you're happy with what you have, I'll just show you my what I've already done. So here you can see that I've popped in some of my solid colors, and from there you can then start to add additional details. Now in my layers here, I do only have 3 layers. I did start with about 30 or 40 layers, and I just merged them as I went, so I didn't have as many. So once I was happy, I then merged them together. And that's all you do. So I kept going back to Google, looking at what he does, picking up that he has lots of arrows, he's got sections that are cut out, and so on. So how I did some of those things, I used my ruler for a few of them. So you'll notice that if I bring my ruler over here and I do a long line and I move it across, I can create a series of lines that mirror each other. The same if I created a really big line, for example, and then use my eraser tool, bring it in slower. I've still got my ruler in the same space. I can remove part of that, which gets me some of these sections that I have down here, and then I used my brush and did another line with inside that area that was cut off. Doing dots, I just, like dots on the face here, I just clicked with my brush, made sure I had a large brush, and I can click the dots. Again, it appears on both sides, which is very handy. You don't have to do a lot of backwards and forward work. What was something else that I did? If you draw straight from the center, you can see that you can get the lines there. If I do it by hand, you can see that my lines are really wonky. So you can use your steady stroke to help, and that will start to straighten up your lines a little bit more. But I would highly recommend utilizing that ruler as much as you can to get very solid, clean, smooth, absolutely smooth, straight lines. Okay, so once I did all my solid areas, I then go in and I start adding in some details. So here's a layer that shows my details that I've started adding in. Again, so a lot of these line details and curves and overlapping and broken lines here, I got all of those inspirations from Jonny Wan's artwork. So you've got broken lines here with circles and bubbles. He's got flowers inside circles here. And I simply did that. So I kept going, adding details as I went until I was happy with what I had. Let me just invisible that background image. And that's all you do. So for the circles in the background, I use my circle tool. Again, as soon as you add it on one side, it will show up on the other side, which is really handy. As you reduce the size of that, you can even do concentric so that they are in the same spot, same angle, same line, which is really helpful. Okay, and I just kept adding and adding until I was happy, and I kept going back to Google and finding ideas. Each layer I did a new color or a new pattern, and as I was happy with them, as I got towards the end, then I started merging those layers together, because I ended up with about 30 or 40 layers with different patterns that I was doing. Okay, so yes, size 4 pencil, my paintbrush, my hard edge eraser were all the tools that I used in terms of drawing and erasing, and then I used my ellipse and my ruler to do all of my shapes, and using that symmetrical line the entire time to keep everything the same on both sides. And my color puck was really handy. I just keep changing my color down here to keep my color the same. I did at the end, you will notice that in your layers, right at the bottom here, you've got a layer called the background layer. You can change the color of your background layer, and that will consistently be the background layer for your entire image. So I did find that the white background and my bright greens were kind of fighting for dominance. So I thought I want my color and my French Bulldog to stand out. So I changed my background to black, and there all of my bright greens and my whites pop out more on the screen. So that could be an option that you do, as well as maybe change that background color to a dark color so all of your bright drawings show through. So that was how I created Jonny Wan inspired artwork. Symmetrical, brushes, erasers, using my ruler and my ellipse tool to keep everything on the same size, and making sure that I choose all of my tints and shades from my color palette to keep it monochromatic. And there's the finished product. So go ahead and have a go yourself and see what you can come up with. Remember, if you get lost at any point, you're like, I don't know what to do, jump on Google and have a look at what he does. He has heaps of artworks here that you can get inspired by patterns and shapes. Alright guys, enjoy making your Jonny Wan inspired artwork.